Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers. Right?
No judging.
Yeah.
No judging.
The millennials are really changing that.
Is charm.
No. All success begins with desire.
I feel like I'm on fire right now.
OMG, baby, tell them.
Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers. Justin Fox, Almira, Bardai, Almira. Thank you very much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. So let's jump right in. So you are a PR and communications, I don't know what, czar, expert, aficionado, serial entrepreneur, brand builder. Why don't we, I actually haven't done one of these for about a week or two, but one of the things I like to start off with is sort of a choose your own adventure. So I'm going to let you choose where this conversation goes. Do you want to talk about sort of what you're doing now as kind of the one maybe area,
Sure.
or maybe what's got you to this point? Maybe like go back, a few years. And what's that?
Yeah. Why don't we start with the story of where it started?
For sure.
About how it got me there, because
Let's start there. So where did it all begin?
Yes. So back when I started many years ago, but no, I've been in the industry for 25 years now, and it's so hard and shocking to say that, right? Like, where did it go? But so from a schooling perspective, I did my degree in communications, but I did a co-op program. So when I was, I think
you're West Coast, right? Simon Fraser? So
Vancouver.
BC?
Yeah.
Vancouver? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Up on the mountain. And the campus is right sort of on the hills there, right?
Yeah. In the middle
edge of the city. Yeah. My wife's from Vancouver, so I've seen it. Yeah. I think her cousin went there as well. So
yeah.
Nice school.
The reason why I also chose it is because of that co-op program, but also I wasn't 100% sure of what I wanted to do from a major, and all the other universities you had to pick right away, and that philosophy just didn't jive with me. So I went in, and then I ended up doing the communications program. It still is one of the top in North America. And it had the co-op program where you go and you do work experience, and so I honestly say that was the big catalyst to my career, and I'm like the spokesperson for the program because I'm always saying to people, you have to do co-op. And so you have to do 4 terms, and I did 2 did I do 2 8 months? Yeah, I did 2 8 months. So I did with the government first in the government of Canada. I worked in Ottawa.
And so you came all the way to Ottawa.
Yeah.
Is that the first time you made it to Ontario?
No, I think I'd been there before. So I was really lucky to grow up. My mom was a travel agent back in the good days of travel. My mom would go for
that existed. What you could actually leave
there was a good
airlines. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So she would fly for free. My dad would be half price, and me and my sister were twins. If we were under 11, we'd be on child's fares. Remember those?
Yeah.
So I traveled the whole world literally by the time when I was a kid. So I'd been there before, and then I worked for 8 months with the government, came back, did some more schooling, and then I worked in Future Shop, which then got bought by Best Buy eventually. So and I always say my story is there's no such thing as no. So I ended up, of my government contacts, reaching out to the director of that government office here in Vancouver and said, hey, can I work for you? So I never had to work those retail jobs or any of those things by the time that I did the co-op program, because I had so many contacts that I then used to stay in the industry. So I've really been working in the industry for such a long time. Yeah. And then I was recruited into a PR agency, one of the top agencies in the country, and it did crisis PR. And it was crazy, but it was fun. And I learned so much. And so, I had Indigenous protesters on my client's land. They burnt down a hotel that was being built. I had the TransLink, which is our bus company. There was a bus strike. This was one summer.
Right.
There was a bus strike.
And you're early on in your career too. So it's like, thrown into this deep end kind of thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But you just volunteered to do all of the things. And even when I did my government co-op job, I just kept saying yes to the pieces of work they would offer me. And so we had a new director come into my department, and she says, hold on a second here. So my boss, Andre, she's like, you do this file and Almira does everything else. And she's like, the co-op student is running this? But I just kept saying, yes, absolutely. I'll happily do it. And then what happened was that I worked for an agency here in Vancouver, and then I really wanted to move to the UK, to London. And when my friends had previously gone, the tech market had exploded. So the recruiters would just place them, even though they're on these party holiday maker visas where you can only work in a bar or a shop. They were placing them in real jobs, if you will, because the recruiters knew that they couldn't keep up with the demand. Of course, when I went, the market had bombed. So
Okay.
I had to find my own job.
Right.
But one of my clients at my agency was Molson, the beer company.
Right.
And so I was on the tube one day. I'd just moved to the UK. You know, I was
That's the
temping,
train.
of
That's
course.
the
Yeah.
the subway, right? The tube.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I'd been temping when I first got to the UK, and then I saw an ad for Cobra beer. And I thought, I did Molson's PR.
Right.
I'm going to call Cobra. So I literally called Cobra, which was an Indian beer but brewed in the UK, going really mainstream. But I cold called the marketing director and I said, do you have a job? And he goes, we're hiring for a secretary. And I said, great, I'll be your secretary if you let me do PR. So his response back to me was, you have a deal, but it's the secretary's salary. No problem. And I did it. So always trying to find those moments which to be able to open that door,
to
right?
get your foot in the door, right?
Yeah.
So just to not to cut the story out, I would definitely want to hear, just for like people watching, obviously PR, public relations, communications, like, and you talk about like sort of the, you know, you mentioned sort of the reserve or the different sort of things that you're dealing with, the natives. What exactly is PR communications? Like, what does that entail, right? Like some people might be sitting there not really understand, because marketing's one thing, you know, PR, I think you obviously have sort of public relations. You also have like IR, investor relations would be another sort of thing. Like, what exactly is PR and how are you putting out those fires? What are you volunteering for?
Yeah.
Give me an idea of what that is, what that means in your mind.
Yeah. So the public relations part of it, it's specifically working with the media. And so a company will hire you, or a PR company or a freelance publicist to be able to take their story to the media. It's our job to have those media contacts. We either make them continually or we cold call and find them. And it's to be able to take that client story, package it up, and be able to present it to the media.
Now
that's the traditional way of doing it, like radio, television, and newspaper, print. But of course,
so
now
like a long form commercial, in essence.
A story.
So long form story.
The newspaper, that is the story that's written by a reporter. So it's not an ad. It's differently written. It's not, you know, it doesn't even really talk about your company in the hardcore marketing ways and messages.
It's more like the soft approach, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the original version of content, right? Like kind of like, you know, you talk about putting out content and kind of helping people. It's sort of the original, you know, iteration of that, I would say.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And now, of course, it's evolved that in communications and PR. So communications, I would say, is kind of the overall umbrella, and PR is one of the avenues. And then there's IR, investor relations, where you're specifically dealing with the investment community and even investment reporters. But now marketing has really broadened, right? It includes content marketing, social media, and even what I do from a public relations perspective, where we take our story to the media. You know, we would never pay for a story. Now it's actually quite accepted. And you can actually get really great results from paid editorial. And then you also build in influencers, all of that work. So my job and what I do as a brand builder has really evolved. So, you know, starting at Cobra, and then I moved up to head of global PR, then I worked abroad, and then I had my own consultancy, but then I started a PR agency. And again, very rooted in taking our client story to the media. But that year, Facebook and Twitter launched when I launched my business, so 2009. And we had to learn to be able to communicate, engage with the client's customers through social media and all those pieces. And of course, like I said, influencers got added in. We started doing different things like marketing, digital ad buys, Facebook buys, Twitter, all of those things. And that's how the industry has evolved. And my job and role has evolved.
So there's sort of been a crossover between sort of PR communications and sort of the marketing, right? Because like you said, now there's sort of a paid editorial, right? So I don't know where the line is drawn, but you know, you read I don't know, Forbes or Entrepreneur, or, you know, are some of those editorials paid for? Like, where is the line? You can reveal the secrets of the industry. Yeah. How does that work?
You know what? You use the word crossover. I would say integration. Because now they really, really work so well together. Now, Forbes, it would not be paid, or an Entrepreneur. Those are actually articles that a reporter either writes because they've interviewed somebody, or they will have an entrepreneur write the article and then pick it up. But the one secret behind this is there's something called Forbes Council. And those are thought leadership councils that an entrepreneur or CEO, the C-suite, can apply to be a part of the council. I think it's $1,700 US for the year. And you can have 6 articles, but they have to be good.
Yes.
properly written. My recommendation is that you always work with a journalist or a professional.
Who writes the actual article?
So a ghostwriter,
Okay.
or somebody who specializes in thought leadership. So when you pay for it, you or your ghostwriter is the one writing it, and then it goes through their approval system. So it can't be crappy written content. It has to be properly written in an editorial style. It's interesting. It has to be something new, fresh, a different take on it.
Right.
And then it gets put onto Forbes. Or there's a new one actually by Entrepreneur. They've just launched their Entrepreneur Leadership Network.
Okay.
That one is $2,000 US, I believe. And you can have up to 12 articles for the year.
And so where do those articles, do they actually appear in the Entrepreneur, like, or in sort of Forbes as an article? Yeah. Okay, interesting. Yeah.
So
I was just throwing that out there as just the top of mind. I wasn't really, so that's interesting. So they've started to go down that path. So where would that have originated? Like who would, I mean, I obviously don't know the original, at least I don't think you maybe know who the original one was, but who kind of popularized the paid editorial?
I think the industry had to. And so when I worked in the UK, you could do such paid editorials. And for me, it was really weird because it's just not how you do things in my mind.
Right.
And I think especially in Canada, it has had to, because our industry is so much smaller and it's not very strong now from a media perspective. I think the American media also really capitalized on it. They have stronger media than we do. They have the Forbes, the Entrepreneur.
Right.
And so they really saw the opportunity, but also the necessity. And again, there's still credibility now in paying for those opportunities. You're still getting your thoughts out there.
Right.
And the media has really shifted to a pay-to-play model. There's opportunities for unpaid, but it's shifted, it's integrated. And so there's some really great opportunities for paid stuff.
So what percentage, like, are you talking now it's completely shifted over? Like there's very little, I mean, you did say there are in Forbes and Entrepreneur, I mean, we should be an ad for them right now. That there are some non-paid, but is primarily everything sort of shifting towards that?
I would say it's 50-50, but it also depends on your communication strategy.
Right, right.
For some of my clients, I actually recommend they do paid because you can get the measurement and see the numbers and get a report behind it.
Right.
And so my job is that I will pitch some, or my team, I've got a team who I work with, will pitch some stories. So for example, what my biggest client is a crypto exchange, a legit crypto exchange. And of course, crypto's.
Can you name them on here?
Yeah. Netcoins.
Netcoins. Okay.
Yeah,
are they Canadian?
Yes.
Canadian. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Where are they based out of? West
Out of
Coast?
Vancouver.
Vancouver. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. And so the president of that company actually founded the world's first Bitcoin ATM about 12 years ago now in Vancouver. So Canada is very much on the map about this.
Right.
And with Netcoins, we will pitch podcasts. We pitch the president, Mitchell Demeter, for interview. We do a whole bunch of like earned PR work, but we also do paid campaigns because right now, again, the market's crazy. Everybody wants to talk about Bitcoin. The interesting thing is nobody understands crypto. So that's why we're doing paid editorial to be able to get out to everybody.
The educational aspect of it, right?
And own the message, because you don't always own the message when you do earned. It's up to the journalists and how they read it, right?
Yeah,
and then
definitely
get a report to see how it performed.
Definitely. Well, I mean, backers we're a security token platform, right? So blockchain-based security token. So it's more crypto, but with asset-backed security. So financial companies, it's essentially, I like to think of it as the early stage TSX built on blockchain. So for early stage companies. But anyways, so very familiar with blockchain, Bitcoin, NFT. NFTs is the sort of the next evolution, sort of the non-fungible tokens. We're actually launching a non-fungible token exchange over the next little while as well, sort of on our platform. But interesting. So paid is sort of pay to play. That's an interesting. So I guess, I mean, is that, I have a couple questions, but I want to ask one thing. Do you think that because of, you look at the editorial space was all sort of, I mean, 10, 15, 20 years ago was sort of print, internet was, just sort of starting out sort of early 2000s. They're looking for revenue opportunities. So that was sort of an easy way to start to generate revenues from the stories, not just from the viewers, correct? Do you see that as being a necessity for them or no?
That's a hard one. I believe it's out of necessity because they had to. The media industry is smaller in Canada. It was consolidating, meaning smaller newsrooms, laying people off, people are consuming content differently. They're
Right.
not subscribing to the print edition of the Vancouver Sun necessarily, right?
Right.
So they had
I
to
think my
make-
dad still goes to the store and picks up the newspaper, but
Yeah.
he's almost 80. So it's, it's different generation. Yeah.
You can't get the Globe and Mail paper copy outside of the Lower Mainland and most main cities. You will be emailed the PDF. So I went to Whistler trying to get the Globe and Mail.
If you're a subscriber, you get emailed the PDF.
Usually, yes.
Really?
So that's what they were trying to shift to that model. I'm sure there's still people who can get some print.
Yeah.
But like I went to Whistler, tried to get a copy of the Globe and Mail, can't get it.
No.
So out of necessity, they had to start paying.
Right.
But because they started the newspaper layoffs, all of that whole changing of the model, because the money just wasn't there.
Right.
It is shifted into paid. And again, paid is not a bad thing. I think it has a really bad reputation. Right. You can actually have really, really great stories because there's just not enough people in the newsrooms to write the stories, and there's not necessarily enough pages devoted to editorial.
Right.
So it was a push-pull of the whole thing and how the industry has shifted.
Interesting. So I guess I'll ask two questions. I have two questions. So where are you now? You're obviously running your agency. You mentioned working with a couple firms. So love to talk about that. But I'd like to also know, like, where do you see, you talked about 50-50, where do you see PR communications? I mean, the amalgamation sort of with marketing, where do you see this going 5-10 years?
That's a hard one, to be honest. As I always say, it's not
throw the curveballs, throw the hard questions. Yeah.
Who would have ever said that Facebook would have been invented, or that went from a platform that we all just used to share pictures and tag each other and poke each other to be one of the biggest news publishers, right?
Right.
I don't think this model is going to change, though. I think the model will stay the same. The integration, that it's all about content marketing. It's about how we consume. The older generation were consuming the print, the TV, all of those things. I mean, I hate to say it, they're eventually going to pass away, right? So this generation of millennial and Gen Z, I think it is, they're going to continue consuming on apps, all of those things. Do I think the news outlets will go away? No, but I do think they will look differently.
Yeah. So I mean, as far as like the shift, do you see kind of, so I agree with the education part. I think that's huge. Like the ability for a business, like you said, sorry, what was the exchange called again? Netcoin, right? So for Netcoin, in an industry where, there is a lot of sort of education. I mean, he's probably been trying to educate people for 12 years or more, right? Since he launched the ATM. It's funny you mentioned that. I remember going and looking for Bitcoin, I think around 2011, 2012. And there was an ATM at Queen in Toronto, Queen and Spadina, and it was never open. And so I could never ever figure out how to actually get Bitcoin, kicking myself, 8 years later, or I think probably 7-8 years later, that if only I would have gotten in at like $200-$300 a coin or whatever it was at the time, right? $400. It would have been,
We wouldn't need to have this podcast.
Yeah, we
would.
Yeah, exactly. We'd be on our own islands. I'd have, my 100 Bitcoin would be worth whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever I would have been able to throw into it at $300-$400 a coin.
Yeah.
So there's that side of getting the messaging out and stuff. So do you where do you see, is there going to be a lot of amalgamation in the industry where there's like obviously in TV, like I think we're sort of talking about print versus TV versus kind of like paid versus non-paid, is like, where do you see it kind of all amalgamating, or
no?
No, you think it's even getting more spliced a little bit, or where do you think it?
I think they're going to stay in the conglomerates that they are.
Right. Okay.
Already, I think it was about maybe 6 years ago, Bell Media bought Astral. So that was a big change in the industry. What I think is going to continue to happen, and we already keep seeing it, Bell Media has a number of different radio, TV, and they're just going to, and they did a bunch of layoffs, 100 layoffs. So from a person consolidation or getting rid of people, I think that will continue. They're going to continue making it more efficient, as they say. But I don't think like the Rogers, the Bells, the big boys, I don't think that they're going to go away. I think that print might be interesting because, of course, Post Media sold to a US buyer a number of years ago, right?
Okay.
So are we going to see more American ownership? I don't know about that. The Globe and Mail is still a phenomenal publication, but they're not doing well and haven't been doing well for years. So I think it's going to be the money that's going to dictate it, but I don't see the actual companies or most of the outlets. And when I say outlets, I mean radio, TV, print, I don't think they're going to go away to a certain degree. We might just see few of them, but we're still going to see the big boys like the CTV Vancouver, Global Vancouver, Toronto. Those aren't going to change. We might see a change in the smaller markets.
I have another question. I just thought of it as you were saying there, some of the things with Globe and Mail. Do you see, and you talked about sort of the ghostwriter, and it's not really ghostwriter, but do you see things like AI being able to like create content where it's pulling from other content? Completely out of left field. I realize that maybe not your expertise or not, but I just wondering, like, do you see sort of that, like, because I see there's a lot of these like content creators or like, what do they call them? They're AI based, but basically it's kind of like script, like for your website or for like ads, like where it'll kind of write like different content that can be used a lot. Do you see that being used in the media space at all? Maybe out of one
out of my wheelhouse to answer that.
Yeah.
But I don't from an industry perspective. I do think journalists are still going to be around to stay and somebody needs to report it.
Right.
But the thing what you're seeing is also like news wires, right? So there is the Canadian press that a writer for
where
the
they
Canadian
pull it all
press
together kind of
gets their story and it runs across all of the print networks or then it gets reported on radio and TV, right? So the sources might actually be streamlined again to use a news wire to have fewer people do it. But ultimately, I think you still need the journalist to be able to tell the story. That's my view. Maybe I'm really
unless the machines really get really good and start to take over, right? And then
you never know.
You never know.
You
never know the way the technology is going for sure.
Well, it's like my kid now. He's like, "Oh, did the Amazon man come?" And I'm like, do you know that we used to go to stores to get things?
To pick things up, right?
For him, shopping is completely different. So I wonder, you realize how old you are, right?
Yeah.
That we had such a different consuming and buying experience.
I grew up without the internet.
Yeah.
Crazy as that might sound. I was in university when I got my first email. So yeah. So it's definitely we don't have to say ages or anything, but it's definitely a different world from when I grew up for sure. So
same.
Yeah, exactly. So cool. Well, Almira, I really appreciate you joining me here. I typically ask one question. If there was one sort of piece of advice, I think you kind of said at the beginning of this, that you could give to a younger you, what would that be? Sort of one word, one piece of advice, younger you or somebody kind of starting out.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, from an entrepreneurship perspective, I think I actually did it well. Like, just if you have an idea, make sure it's valid, go and do it. But from a human perspective, figure out investing earlier, investing in passive income.
Compound interest, right?
Yeah. Well, not even that, just investing in stocks. And I think men got it figured out before women, not to generalize, but I really see women now starting in their 40s and 50s to start looking investing. It would be a completely different story. And why I'm getting really educated about this is actually because I've gotten involved with Netcoins and looking at cryptocurrency. And just, if we had bought cryptocurrency, I actually knew Mitchell 10 years ago when he started doing it.
So you could have been in there, right? Yeah.
And so why aren't we thinking about these opportunities and these things? Because I think that we could be in a very different economic time. And I think that also as female entrepreneurs, we would be in a very different financial position. So that's why I say from a human personal perspective. But as an entrepreneur, if you have a really great idea and you've got the tenacity to do it and you believe in it and you can fund it properly and make smart decisions, do it. Own your future. That's what I always say.
Awesome. And invest in yourself too. I think that's sort of what, investing in sort of passive, but also investing in yourself so that you can actually get out there and do something. Awesome. Well, Almira, I really appreciate you joining me. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Everyone else, this is One Take, powered by backers. Where can they find you, I guess? Website, social, Twitter, I would assume, Facebook.
Yeah, I'm not a
TikTok.
I'm not a Twitter. I'm a little old. I got email at 18. I'm not doing TikTok.
Okay. No, okay.
My website is www.almirabardai.com. You can also catch me on LinkedIn, or to make it simple, Instagram, Almira B. It's ALMIRAB. Easiest one.
Perfect. Awesome. Everyone else, Almira, thank you very much. Really appreciate you joining me. Everyone else, we'll see you again very soon. Hey there, welcome to One Take, powered by backers.
Right? No judging. No judging.
The millennials are really changing that.
Is charm. No.
All success begins with desire.
I feel like I'm on fire right now.
OMG, baby, tell